So yeah, that's the transcriber character in this. So she starts to get more and more caught up in this world of the sailors as she's transcribing the Gazette. So this is a part of her sort of fictionalized fantasy that she has of the world of the sailors, which is nothing like the actual world of the sailors. So this is a note for 15. It's about Mr. Hooper and Mr. Wakeham, who are two sailors. Oh, and I should also explain that one of the other things that Captain Perry did to keep the men occupied was put on theater performances. So he would dress the men up in corsets and outfits and put on plays. So this is them preparing for play. Mr. Hooper, the ship's purser, his body entwined, arms behind, neck arched, his face the direction of his back. Enter Mr. Wakeham, offering assistance. An improvised corset is now in play, half laced around Hooper's upper half. Mr. Hooper feels pretty in his déshabillé. In spite of himself, Mr. Wakeham, a romantic, feels virile, full, vertical like an English pine. Mr. Wakeham entwines the end of the corset strings, twirling the two digits round in equal opposing circles, spiraling the string around them, laying inch over inch of the tawny, filthy fabric until they're wound up tight like a ball of string with fingertips in the core. He pulls back, bracing his feet on the floor next to Mr. Hooper's, his pelvis jutting in slightly as his torso leans away, tightening. He feels the resistance of the corset fabric and pulls decisively and hard, the burly forearms, the weathered palms, but with a touch of graceful sensuality, the kind possessed by a woman over a textile. He pulls, exchanging corset string for the proximity of his pelvis. The string pulls, the pelvis pushes. The light from his lamp where he had set it down illuminates the tendons in Mr. Hooper's tilted, arching neck, and Mr. Wakeham stumbles across the image of the straight Grecian bridge of his nose sliding down against it, spreading its slick grime against Mr. Hooper's clean white skin like a butter knife on a fresh slice from a steaming loaf of bread. Pop! The corset string snaps, the back half unravels and drops to the floor, lost among the folds of Mr. Hooper's petticoat. Mr. Wakeham, spluttering, apologizing profusely, searching blindly, laboriously through the dense, entangled sheets of Mr. Hooper's bottom half. He juts his glance at Mr. Hooper, helplessly, crouched on his knees, searching, desperate, fumbling. I can't seem to find it down here. From his eye, a tiny strip of paper, balled up, floats down at the speed of a weighted, meaningful pause, and Mr. Wakeham catches it. Mr. Hooper asks him in a shy, low voice, "Do I look like a woman to you, Wakeham?" So that's the fantasy world of the transcriber. Okay, so just one more is one more just sort of more theoretical one to end it off. I should have marked them. I can't find it now. Oh, here it is. Endnote 16. Here I transcribe a transcription, so therefore a transcription and also the act of transcription. Since a transcription is a translation that is completely clear, I look directly through a window onto another window. For every stitch I transcribe, I am transcribed in turn. I write and am written through, the motion of transcription like a swing, each apex impelled there by force of it having fallen from the other side, and including the knowledge that it has only achieved its location because it will fall back. Falling back as it falls forward, falling forward as it falls back. However, when the transcription becomes triple, as it does here, it bears mention that its structure changes completely. See figure 3. So the transcriptions have all these little diagrams in them. So this is the sort of one of the more simple ones. So I don't know if you can see this, the diagram of the transcriber transcribing a transcription that was in the Gazette. It becomes something rather impossible, a quilt body ball inside a quilt body ball inside a quilt body ball, and there it is tumbling, scattering, wrapping, transcribing a transcriber who transcribes a transcriber who transcribes a transcriber whose transcriber transcribes that transcriber's transcription of the transcription he transcribes or tries to, at least. A text is a record of motion, different kinds of motions appearing just under the surface where the reading lies, like a body or two bodies moving under a quilt. The reading tracks these motions, sews a new quilt, one in the likeness of the bodies, and this quilt then becomes a new text, new bodies budding, forming, unfurling underneath the new quilt, and so on, until there's a veritable ball, cluttering, shattering layers falling around in a circle of bodies and fabrics, clinging to one another, sometimes acknowledging the identity of the substance wrung tight in one's crevices and sometimes not. And at the center moves. It's the place where there is no sun, where the sun sets and rises someplace else, where night revolves around into day and day into night without any change in the darkness. There, an interpreter and a poet sit across from each other, attempting vainly to pierce the nucleus of meaning, to break through the mucus orb, iniquitous liquids spilling through fists the texture of oil. The image stretches, yearns, burns for its impossible other, the non-being that furnishes its sense, lays its shoulders on the floor and kicks backwards against the door with its feet, and dreams of sex, of wholeness, of infancy, of death, and fails. We head north for glory, for God, for knowledge and a northwest passage, but add an L to God and you get gold. What hides there inside the sheath of desire? A dark black rock that glitters deep inside the earth, maybe? Wormholing unctuous tunnels of a smooth siren song liquid, the blood of the devil, the lust for which destroys nations, bodies, and the earth itself is oil, not gold.